Hey guys, Drew here over at Rev Hiker Outdoors, and I want to try to answer a question today that I've been asked several times, and that is, what knife should I buy for backpacking or for ultralight backpacking? I want to attempt to answer that today, and I'm not going to give you, just so you know right off the bat, I want to give you a bunch of knives to kind of choose from, kind of go from one end of ridiculous down to the other. And usually the answer lies somewhere in between. What you have to decide is really what you want to do with the knife, what kind of capability do you want versus the weight that you're going to carry. So every backpacker is going to have to find their own balance for that. Camping, same thing, unless you're car camping and then weight doesn't matter. But if you're throwing stuff on your back, you have to remember that ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain. So the more stuff you bring, I guess the more you're going to be hurting. At least that's the way it is for me with some of my back and knee issues. But I like to be able to bring as little as I can, but still have a level of security knowing that I have good capability with the equipment that I brought. So I want to show you guys some options that I've got here, kind of share with you what I generally bring, and then kind of just give you some information so that you can decide on your own. So I'm going to change the camera here, show you some of these things and kind of give you some close-ups. I'll give you the pros and cons and the capability, the cost, and kind of the weight trade-off.
Okay, so here we are, guys. The first thing I'm going to cover is a machete type knife. Now, in all honesty, where I go hiking, one of these is not really needed, ever. But if you find yourself in a bushwhacking situation through really deep stuff, if you're doing some really backcountry peaks through some really thick stuff, this could really come in handy. This is the Bear Grylls Gerber. Now, I don't want to get a million comments about how Gerber and Bear Grylls have gone downhill and it's all a bunch of junk and Bear Grylls is an idiot. Bear Grylls is an idiot, but I received this as a gift, and so whatever. I've actually used it, and it's really not that bad. Now you can see this looks a little different than the stock one. I took the coating down because this is high carbon steel. So what I did is I just stripped the coating off with some sandpaper, and I kind of acid etched this with some mustard. The vinegar, the acid and the vinegar will etch the high carbon steel. This is 1055, so it's a pretty soft steel. Anyway, this is actually a pretty light machete, and it's quite strong. I actually beat the living snot out of this thing, kind of trying to test it. The grip is excellent, but like I said, for backpacking, especially ultralight backpacking, if we're talking ultralight, this is totally off the table. This is not even a consideration. But like I said, this could be used in some real backcountry situations, in bushwhacking. This would be more appropriate as a lightweight option for a bushcrafter or something of that nature. But for backpacking, while I could see its purpose in a jungle or something like that, this is kind of on the end of ridiculous. But I have seen backpackers with one of these, and with one of these, and with a multi-tool, and with like 3 pocket knives. So, I guess I'm just kind of showing all the options. If you think that you really could use this, this one really is not bad for the money. They're relatively cheap, and holds an edge halfway decent, and they're pretty strong, and the grip is incredibly comfortable. So if this is something that you're looking at, they're relatively cheap, and from what I've found, good quality. I hacked down a dead pine tree with this just for the heck of it one day. Just kind of putting this thing through the ringer, and it did quite well. I didn't roll over the edge at all, so it performed better than I thought it would. So anyway, the Bear Grylls Parang is the full-size Parang. For backpacking, definitely not something I would carry, but if you see the use for it, then this isn't a bad option, especially for the money. Okay, so moving on. This is something that I've seen a lot of guys carry. Maybe not this particular knife, but something very similar. I've seen a lot of campers and backpackers have like a big K-bar attached to their pack or something like that. Now again, you guys can see that I did this because this is the Schrade SCHF 9, full 1/4 inch thick on this full tang knife. So as far as weight goes, without the sheath, this thing is I think it's 15 ounces. It's just under a full pound. It does hold a nice edge. The choils you can really choke up and do some finer stuff, but in all reality, this is kind of at the end of ridiculous for camping, for backpacking. Car camping, if you're going to be chopping up kindling, you don't want to bring a hatchet. You know, if you're going to be batoning stuff, this definitely could be an option. Certainly, it's performed pretty well for me. I've had no issues with it. I mean, you know, really for practicality, you could probably leave the coating right on. I did take the coating off and put a patina on this just because at the time I was experimenting with it. I thought it was kind of neat. But anyway, it's really, for the money, great knife. Made in Taiwan, big hunk of steel here. 1095 high carbon, great thing. But as far as weight goes, it's really out of the question. This is on the end of ridiculous for backpacking. A full pound without the sheath, or just under a full pound. This is crazy for backpacking, especially ultralight. My base weight is right around 6.5 or 7 pounds, depending on my loadout. But I mean, this would literally be 1/6 of my pack. So for me, it's kind of out. Definitely out as far as weight goes, but relatively cheap. You can get them for, I've seen them anywhere from like $38 or so up to about $50. You know, that's box store versus maybe online sale prices. So anyway, not a bad knife, but for backpacking, for me, it's definitely out. Way too heavy. Now, if you're stuck on fixed blade knives, I would recommend anything in the Mora line. This happens to be a Mora Companion for about $14 shipped from Amazon. This is an amazing knife. Scandinavian grind, which is just absolutely great for all camping tasks, any backpacking tasks. And this thing is really light. And it'll take a lot of abuse, even with the sheath. This thing is only, I believe, I think it's like 5 ounces with the knife, or with the sheath. So that's really light for the capability that you get with this. Maybe not the capability of this as far as splitting wood, but as far as like making fire tinder or gear repair or anything like that, this is actually going to have more capability than a big whopper like this, because you have such a fine tip. You can do whittling with this. You can make little things. You can do gear repairs. You can pop out stitching if you need to. I mean, there's just, I think the Mora is one of the most useful knives, period. I love Mora stuff. It's bomb-proof, really good stuff. The Scandinavian grind, once you learn how to sharpen it, super easy on a stone. It will just take an absolute hair-popping edge. You can shave with this knife. I have heard people complain that sometimes the spine comes unfinished. Who cares? Mine did come a little rough. I put it on the grinder for all of about 1.5 seconds. I think I did one pass this way, one pass that way. Took all that down, put a 90-degree spine on there, and it's great for striking like a fire steel or something like that. So as far as fixed blades go, any Mora that you buy, you're not going to go wrong with. Super lightweight, super strong, tons of capability, super low on cost. I'm not paid by Mora, but man, do they make a great product, and I highly recommend these. These are some of my favorite knives on the planet. High carbon steel, you can also get them in stainless. I prefer the carbon steel, does hold its edge better. So anyway, for lightweight backpacking, ultralight, I mean, you could clip this. The way I generally carry this is clipped right onto the sternum strap on my pack. This is very secure, and that just clips right on there. I let it hang, and man, just great knife. Great knife. Almost, it's not quite full tang, but the way the handle's constructed and molded around the tang, it's super strong, and you can baton with this without a worry. Probably for the weight, most capable knife in the bunch by the weight. Next thing that a lot of people like to carry is some sort of a multi-tool. I will say this about multi-tools. Just get a better one. Don't skimp. Don't get a cheapo. Pay a little more. Spend a little more. It'll be worth it. This is part of my everyday carry. I have not been without a Leatherman Charge TI or TTI for the past about 7 or 8 years. Just great quality, everything on the Leathermans. 25-year warranty, made in America. The reason I chose the TTI and the TI was because their main blades are very high quality. This is S30V, super high quality stainless steel. You know, can rival some high carbon steels. 154 CM and S30V are two of my favorite stainless steels. I really won't carry many blades that aren't that if they're stainless. But anyway, this is so useful for hiking, camping. Now, drawback on this is the weight and the price. But as far as capability for gear repairs, everything like that, you've got screwdrivers on here, bottle openers, can openers. You've got a saw, you've got a file, you've got 2 blades. You have the regular blade here, and then you also have, you also have the serrated blade with the gut hook, pocket clip, everything locks, you know, scissors, screwdrivers. This is just an incredibly useful tool. Super high capability. But I think this is like 11.2 ounces or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is quite weighty. It's probably the second heaviest next to this Whopper, but certainly much heavier than the Mora or any of these other blades you see sitting here. However, capability on this is through the roof. This is something that I have carried as a solo option on many different hikes, and it's one of my very few sacrifices to weight when I'm backpacking. This is something that I usually splurge on. Can't say enough about the Leatherman. Love it. I have been hiking without it, and I felt weird. Just, you know, because I miss having the capability of this thing. But I have been hiking with just a pocket knife or just the Mora, and truth be told, I was totally fine. Outside of emergency situations, really, just any old pocket knife will usually do, but I usually like to spend a little extra on the knives just because you normally get what you pay for. One of the exceptions would be the Mora. This is an old knife, about as old as me. It's a Ranger LB95. I'm not even sure if they make these anymore, but it's just kind of like a generic pocket knife. Not a super high quality blade, but it does take a very fine edge because it's a little bit softer and it's a very thin profile. You could get something like a buck knife that would be comparable to this, or many other knives out there. The problem is the steels really aren't that great, and unless you bring something to field sharpen it, if you really do any serious cutting tasks, you're gonna definitely see a dulling in something like this. So is it a great knife? Yeah. Does it have a lot of nostalgia for me? Yeah, my dad gave it to me. Do I really take it hiking with me? No. Number one, I'm too afraid to lose it because I like it so much. But you know, a lot of these less expensive lockback knives, see that blade play? You're going to get that. And it's just, it kind of, I don't know. This is not something I would want to trust my bacon to if it came down to the line. So less expensive knives, I usually tend not to kind of trust that much. This is another option. This is open assist. This is a Smith & Wesson M&P. You know, this is just kind of a gimmicky knife. The steel really isn't that good. It's 40-34, they call it. It's just, you know, it's very comparable to like a 440A or B. Really nothing special at all. This is for someone that wants to look tactical. but doesn't really care too much about the performance of the knife. But like I said, I'm just showing you guys options, and similar to what I've seen people carry. I wouldn't want to trust something like this in the field. Again, you can see the blade lockup is just, you know, it's somewhat sloppy. I used this as a work knife, as a beater for a while, and it didn't really let me down, but it doesn't hold an edge worth a darn. And sometimes the open assist mechanism gets sticky and it won't come out all the way, and I don't know, it's heavy. It's much too heavy to justify the blade steel's performance. So anyway, something like that. These are kind of gimmicky and really not useful for backpacking, in my opinion. This is another knife, another folder, not open assist, but incredibly smooth. This is a CRKT Ripple, Ken Onion design. This is not the original Ripple, which had the frame lock. This is the Ripple 2, slightly smaller with a liner lock. A couple things that I really like about this knife: it's relatively inexpensive, number one. Number two, it's pretty comfortable to carve on because of this rounded spine on the knife. And it's super smooth to deploy, super easy, and the lockup is excellent. You can't, I mean, there is, you feel no play. It doesn't click, doesn't clack, doesn't, you know, get beat around. That's because the ball bearing system is excellent. I did have an issue with some of these fasteners falling out. I contacted CRKT, and they have a lifetime replacement thing on these, on most of their knives, and so they just sent me these new fasteners free of cost, and I put them in, and you know, used a little super glue on the edges after I put them in so they wouldn't slip back out. But again, this is a mid-grade steel. Certainly something like this would be great for backpacking. Super lightweight. Just enough length on the blade to really be useful in a lot of situations. Nice point on there, you know, for any kind of fine work you have to do, for maybe some gear repairs, things like that. Really quite useful, and super light. Thin blade and aluminum scales really make for a very lightweight knife here. So this is something that I could definitely recommend. Like I said, not the greatest steel, but certainly serviceable for backpacking if you're looking for something with pretty decent capability and length, size, comfort, pretty low price, and you know, definitely nice and light. Only a few ounces on this one. Next is one of my favorite knives that I own. This is the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Benchmade really just doesn't make anything that's junk. This is just super useful. This is 154 cm. Probably the only drawback that I would see to the mini grip is really the price. It is quite expensive. Then again, it is made in America. It is a very good steel, and the access lock is just brilliant how they designed this. It just works flawlessly. I love it. You can open it with the thumb studs, which I'm pretty rubbish at. I can't make it go quick, but you can just pull back on the access lock and flip it out or flip it back in. Just really great knife. Very lightweight, but yet it has a pretty hefty blade. This isn't going to snap off under heavy use. It's high quality, very good edge retention. So great knife in the Benchmade Griptilian. Really, any Benchmade you buy, most of them are pretty lightweight and pretty capable, and very stout, very strong. Again, very good lockup on this blade. Really no wobble at all. Love this knife, and what I like on this versus like the Ripple is this is a tip up carry. So when this is riding in your pocket or on your belt, the tip is up. So when you pull it out, it's ready to just deploy. This is tipped down, so you got to pull it out, flip it around, and then kick it out. So not that big of an inconvenience, but I prefer tip up carry. So anyway, now we get down to some of the much smaller, much lighter knives. And as I said in the beginning, I kind of went from one end, which is a little ridiculous, down to the other end, which is a little ridiculous. This is one of those ridiculous things. This is a SOG key knife. I don't even know what it's called. This is just kind of goofy, but I've seen guys carry blades this small out in the woods. I just think it's almost to the point of irresponsible. I mean, to me, a blade is indispensable and one of my, most prized things when I'm out in the field, not only for backpacking, but for bushcrafting and really just in my everyday life. I always have a good quality blade on me. I could not see using this for anything. There's almost no capabilities aside from maybe cutting some rope or, I don't know, cutting open a bag of beef jerky or something. It's really not much of anything. It's very weak. I wouldn't trust it at all. But I have seen people carry very small knives like this, not this particular one, but very tiny bladed knives, and it's just not something that I would do. So, and in my opinion, something like this is a little ridiculous for backpacking. But two really good options that you could have if you really want to cut every ounce. This is the Case Sodbuster Jr. This is in their CV, not their stainless steel, the chrome vanadium, which is a high carbon steel. So you can see this has some patina on it. And that just comes from cutting up meats and apples and all that stuff. Great knife. It doesn't lock back, but it is pretty strong for how it's built. This would be a great option. This really would do just about everything you need it to do. The only drawback on this blade style with this really deep belly is that it's going to be harder to poke holes in things if you should need to do something of that nature. For gear repair or for, boring a little hole in something, whatever it might be. This isn't too awful sharp here. It's almost blunted. But that being said, the blade is incredibly sharp. So good option. Something like this or something smaller and even lighter is this Schrade. This is a SP2. This is when they were still built in the U.S. This is a locking knife, and I think this is probably the lightest knife in the group. It's actually slightly lighter than this SOG, believe it or not. But I think that's just because it has these big metal scales. But this is a great knife. This was when Schrade was still made in the U.S. If you can find an older Schrade like this on eBay or something, and you just want the lightest of the light and still have a good quality piece of metal, this is going to be something good. The SP2, SP3, something like that. Contoured, very, very comfortable, ergonomic grip there, and can take a very good edge. So that's something to keep your mind on if you're really cutting weight. It still has pretty decent capabilities. And then, more on the budget side, this is almost, to me, on the ridiculous side because it is so small, but because of the metal it's made with, it's actually heavier than the Schrade for about the same, roughly the same blade length. However, this being a Tonto for camping, Tontos, whatever, they were designed for stabbing, and I'm sure they're great at that, but I don't know about you, but I really don't have to stab too many things or people. So it's kind of pointless. This is a much more useful blade shape than the Tonto. This is the Micron 2. I mean, this is okay for throwing on your keychain or something for everyday carry, but aside from that, the steel isn't as good as the Schrade, and it's heavier. So anyway, in trying to answer the question, what knife should I buy or what knife should I use for backpacking, the answer is whatever's going to fit you best. And really, I would encourage you to get to some stores or find some friends that have knives and handle them. And you have to decide what you're looking for. If you're looking for a ton of capabilities and a very high quality steel, like this on the S30V and the Leatherman Charge, and you're willing to sacrifice that weight, or if you want something kind of in between, this is still incredibly light with good capability, or something much smaller like the Schrade, obviously going to be quite a bit less capability than the Charge, but still a solid performer. Or do you want something fixed blade, in the event of emergency where you need to baton some wood or really do some heavier working. For backpacking, I'll just kind of put together my list of stuff that I use here. These are really it. These are my favorite for backpacking. I will take one of these when I go out for a trip, and my three favorites would be these. With these, I feel totally comfortable trusting myself to either one of these knives. These are both super great quality, made in America knives. This is made in Sweden, but excellent quality. So anyway, guys, I hope this helped. I hope that some of this information, you can take and make an intelligent decision. And just remember, before you go in the field and you trust something, make sure you test it extensively at home. Make sure you know the ups and the downs and the strengths and the weaknesses of each blade that you take. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing that you take backpacking with you is your mind, is your knowledge. So make sure you're all practiced up with your stuff. And just remember, the best knife in the event of a survival situation is the one you have on you. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe.